KoitCast.
Today's guest has spent over 30 years actively investigating, researching and analysing numerous subjects of strange phenomena. He's looked into Earth mysteries, parapsychological studies, the paranormal, cryptids, ancient sites and unexplained atmospheric phenomena such as UFOs. Please give a massive Koit welcome to Steve Mera. Hi Steve and welcome to KoitCast.
Hi Paul, thanks for having me on.
No worries, it's an absolute pleasure to have you here. Let's start with the old classic, which I tend to ask everyone, but what brought you into the paranormal theatre, if you will? What was your origin story?
Oh, my origin story. That's a good question. Well, though I had some experiences as a child, paranormal came knocking on my door, in a sense of speaking. But my father was into the subject, and when I was young, I got into reading some of his books. I think Eric von Daniken's Chariots of the Gods was probably the first one.
Okay, cool.
And then I got into research, and in 1983 was my first active role. And here we are 41 years later.
Exactly. Now, you mentioned investigations there. Clearly, you are a paranormal investigator. How do you select the cases that you look into? Do you find them or do they find you? And I think you alluded to that earlier.
Yeah, sure. I mean, when we're talking, well, there are two different types of investigations that we have been involved in over the years, and that's corporate investigations, which are usually quite confidential. Some of those cases. I did 16 years of corporate investigations. And residential investigations, well, we have a warranting pointing system. So that usually employs, a scale of marking depending on what's actually taking place.
Okay.
Children involved, if there's trauma involved, that sort of thing. So I've probably done about, I'd say around about maybe 700 investigations, residential, and 16 years of corporate, which
Okay.
is overseas as well.
So you're triaging your cases that come in. You score them according to urgent need, presumably. Is that what it is?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, not all warrant investigation, active investigation. Some people want advice. Some people just need some guidance. And some people do actually need hands-on active investigation to try and resolve the problems that they might be having.
Okay. Now you mentioned corporate investigations, and obviously your website mentions that. Without giving details of companies, etc., what do you normally do for them? And can you give us a story or two?
Yeah, well, it becomes corporate investigations. I mean, let me give you an example.
Hmm.
One of the first investigations we did on a corporate level, which was we provided a CAP, which is a confidentiality assurance policy, which runs for 10 years. The first investigation was for the Ministry of Defence and one of their buildings regarding some disturbances. It was problematic for some of their employees that wouldn't work in certain locations or at certain times. I met with the security handover team, who provided me round the clock details for them for they had to do a handover every 24 hours. So it's constantly monitored these buildings. And I ended up with other security notes regarding the disturbances that they were having. Clearly paranormal in nature. Some of the employees had witnessed phenomena and were very upset, about the disturbance. And it became a managerial error, because as a I suppose a manager of a particular building, how they deal with certain things is a problem, especially regard things like this when you've got staff that won't work certain hours or won't work late, won't work in certain locations. So they went through it was a public relations office that reached out to me on behalf of the Ministry of Defence, and we conducted an investigation. It was highly confidential at the time. We had to pose as electrical engineers, as if we were surveying the building. We met confidentially with people who had already experienced the phenomena. And the whole thing about this was dealing with it in a certain way that wouldn't cause hysteria, that wasn't going to be employing the the normal aspects of, media involvement. It was a matter of trying to resolve this matter for them as a business level. So the investigation took place. It's probably around about 9 months investigation. We did give some clear outlines in regarding some of the things that were attributing to the phenomena, which we managed to resolve. However, the phenomena was seemingly as more associated to the deaths that had happened in the building. And no matter what people might say and things, you can't click your fingers and resolve getting rid of phenomena. But there is a process of management of how people should deal with that, and how a business should deal with that on a professional level, so that it's not impacting to the business. So we had meetings, and we made some changes in the building in regarding staffing, in the reporting process, the confidentiality process, the protocols which were wrote in. And we did better a situation, not resolve it, but better it, make it more manageable for them. And like I said, that was a 9-month investigation, so that's kind of just one of them. We've done other investigations on a corporate level for some very large supermarket chains, you could say, over the years around the country.
Okay, well, let's take that MOD case. What supposedly had been reported, or what had happened, or is that something you can't say?
Oh yeah, sure, yeah, we can do, because it's gone over the 10 year now, and they didn't renew the policy, so we can talk about that. Absolutely, yeah. People, well, the security team went. I mean, I had about a foot deep of reports
Hmm.
plow through from the security officers who I met, the handover team as well, and they were pursuing what normally they would consider an intrusion, a physical intrusion to the building, as if somebody broken in, and they would give chase to these individuals, which the report stated that they were chasing people who were identified, had been seen before, and would seemingly just disappear. So there were also reports that they ran right through a wall, which
Oh,
was there. So that was clearly identifiable as a non-physical phenomena. Um, the disturbances also led to machinery working on their own, elevators being called to different floors. They had specialists in. We brought specialists in for the elevators in regarding the investigation of why they were being. And they said it was as if they were physically called. That was their report. They
hmm.
definitely being tampered by something. And a lot of just noise, activity. Unusual light phenomena was seen, balls of light, which are around about the size of, say, just a little light, slightly larger than a football. There were two of them. These were physically seen, or visibly seen, by the security team and staff on numerous occasions. What was interesting about them, they were also caught on CCTV camera and the footage and photographs.
The balls
Um,
of light were not the people.
yeah, they were caught on CCTV, and they were acting intelligently, so they would take direct actions down corridors, and take direct lefts or rights into open rooms and avoid obstacles in those rooms. So they were very physical. They had a physicality to them and an intelligence to them.
Hmm.
Interestingly enough, because a lot of my work actually crosses over into the connective phenomenon between the UFO and the paranormal, as many people know,
Yeah.
and regarding the work we refer to as Project Doorway over the last 10 years. But they were intelligent, and if you were to put them outside and that phenomenon was witnessed outside, you probably would have referred to it as UAP or UFO phenomena to some degree. Um, the There was one particular woman who had the most traumatic experience. There were numerous, but this was probably the most traumatic. She went into the ladies' toilets um, around about late afternoon
Hmm.
on one particular day. I think it was on a Thursday, and she heard somebody come into the toilets with sounded like walking with heavy boots, which was she immediately thought this was not a female. She was in a cubicle. There was about a 7-inch gap under the cubicle door, and she saw two heavy male boots pop under the door. But what she described that was is that as she looked up, she would have expected to see at least partial the torso coming through the door, which she didn't. The boots were that far under the door that she should have seen,
Oh, whoa.
and she was screaming blue murder, as you can imagine. She was in a terrible state. Then she heard this thing move away. She heard taps come on, and then taps turn off. And eventually somebody came in hearing her screaming, and this person didn't see anything, but kind of came to a rescue. He refused blatantly to work in that area of the building again. Even certain times of the, at night, she wouldn't work. It affected her dearly. And that certainly was a managerial issue because she was she was a duty manager, I think, at the time. So she was quite an important member of staff. And those sort of things went on for quite some time, and eventually, we compiled a report to the people in regarding the building, its age, its history, the deaths on site, that sort of thing. We had to change environmental layouts of the building so to reduce geomagnetics from underground, because this building was built over old canal systems.
I was
And
going to ask you about that, if it was on an aquifer or anything.
there was certainly some geological magnetic phenomena
Mm.
occurring, but a huge amount of electromagnetics as well. The whole building had been constructed like a large antenna because of the way it was constructed. It was constructed like the old 1940s skyscrapers, American skyscrapers. And the reason for it is because the building was influenced and owned by a gentleman called Izovsky, Joseph Izovsky. He was also known as Joe Sunlight, his nickname. He was an
That one's
American.
easier to say, that's why.
He's an
Yeah.
American Jew, and he wanted to build one of the largest skyscrapers in the UK. He got stopped, of course, because he wasn't allowed to build so high, such a building in Manchester town centre in the UK. But it stopped at 14 floors. But still, a very large building. The infestation was across many floors, around about maybe, I would say, 6 or 7 floors of the building, including the top floor, floor 14, where they had like a residential apartment for staff that were staying late, working late, and could stay there. And 2 members of staff stayed in that apartment on the top floor, floor 14, and were hounded all night by something banging on the door. And they knew nobody else was in the building. And they never resolved that. They didn't ever stay overnight again in floor
I'll tell
14.
you what, an interesting thing about that, the 14th floor side of things, is obviously you can't put that down to like a recording, can you, from like the local geology or whatever that sort of somehow projects because it's 14 floors up. They wouldn't have had that in the
Yeah.
past. That's
No, no.
interesting.
These incidents were interactive with the environment and with the people in that environment. So it's very
Hmm.
much intelligent type haunting, you might refer to, or
Yeah.
um, yes, it was highly interactive. Though that we weren't aware of many residual phenomena taking place there because they were all seemingly interacting with the people working there and the security officers. It was highly interactive. So it was you can imagine it was a problem for them. But we did change the environmental layout of the building to reduce not only the GMF effects, but the EMF effects through the technology that they brought into the building. We were utilizing, created a number of EMF hotspot areas. So we ended up also dealing with that matter, and trying to cull and control the situation from getting out of hand, and of course making it easier for them, because at the end of the day this is a business, a very important business, and it has to become a managerial thing for them because like I say, it's that for them, which are our clients, we're trying to make the situation better for them, and of course dealing with the staff as well, on a one-to-one basis was a necessity in regarding how they might experience phenomena and might be handle the situation or reporting of the situation. So we did better the environment. The reporting got less, but I think only for the fact is because maybe some people just got so scared that any little thing out the corner of their eye, which could have been
Mm.
a form of pareidolia or numerous different things, a psychological process of light deprivation just coming at night, would be attributed to the phenomena. Um, but we couldn't clear the building, but we certainly reduced and caused management for them, which is what they wanted to do, really, at the end of the day. And it was concluded, and we'd done our work, and they were very happy with that. And after about 10 years or so, they didn't re-request for the CAP document to be sustainable to continue, so which allowed us to be able to talk about it. And then I think after that, maybe 12 years later, I think some of the staff started reaching out to sort of the newspapers, and they contacted me and got a quote from myself and some of the other investigators that were involved at that corporate level during that time.
It's interesting this 10-year cap thing, but what I want to get to is how. So you go in, you do your work, right? You put recommendations in place, and they obviously carry those out. What is the interval between then, your solution, so to speak, and them reporting back? Is it like every 5 years they give you it, or is it every month?
I
When does
mean,
it wane?
well, we set them up with the process of reporting. Basically, it's called a portal. So we open up a portal. I mean, it sounds terrible wording, but it's an information portal, and it allows them to, like, it's a log, a diary log of events and reports. I mean, what we do is we look through our statistics and we measure, and we see the drop in maybe not so much the activity, but certainly the reporting of it, and making it more managerial area. We can come back in if it's a necessity. However, we believe that it reached a manageable level for them to continue without further support. After 10 years, we report to them, that the CAP document is coming to an end, the confidentiality. If you want to renew that, then please contact us with certain given time. If they do not get back, because over 10 years, people can change hands, businesses can change hands, but the properties still stay the same mostly.
Yeah, and staff leave, obviously.
Yeah,
That's
now,
another
10
thing. Yeah.
years later, there was also another company in there as well as the Ministry of Defence, which was Courtaulds. So no, it was a consultant agency, Cartella consulting agency was in there as well, utilising the building. They had reported stuff as well, but they realised that it had been on a managerial area through the process of investigation for the Ministry of Defence that owned the building at the time. So, and after the 10 years, if they don't, then we can allow certain information. We don't go just throwing it out there. It's not our, we don't go to the media and things. But however, on occasion, information gets out from not our team, because staff were under a 10-year confidentiality, or NDA, you might refer to. After which, though, that some of them talked, the press got wind of it. They came to us for a quote, and we put some details out, and that's how it pretty much works. The main thing is that we kind of look after. We're working for a client, so at the end of the day, it all has to be above board and official, especially when you're dealing with companies like Ministry of Defence. So, after which we did make some statements, and we were allowed to put some details out. And yeah, I mean that's quite a number of years ago now. I think that was around about in the 1990s, 98 maybe, or something like that, 99. It was been quite some time, but I've done a lot of different work for various companies, theatres, office buildings, football ground, a rugby ground. Um,
It tells you this stuff is highly prevalent, and doesn't it, if you're being employed
well, the
by a
thing
lot
is,
of places.
yeah, it was quite unusual to get the first phone call, but I believe I was probably the first people to ever receive a call for a managerial issue regarding these disturbances on a corporate level. Which means that the whole process of investigation has to be done very differently. The documentation has to be very thorough. The process of our work, because they're acting, they're our clients, has to be done in a certain way. Now, once we'd done that investigation, I ended up on this system. It's a public relations system which is linked up around the country. And they started I started getting people reaching out to me regarding other similar incidents because they wanted to be secure that they're not just going to go to a ghost team. And because all they're well, I mean, what are they interested in? Well, they're interested in gathering evidence, a photograph, a video, an EVP, or whatever, and that's it. It's not for the clients. It's not doing nothing for the clients. It's for
That's
them.
true. Yeah.
All they do is they put it out, and it's about how great this is. Well, that's not the situation. We're trying to protect our clients. Some of these people are contacting us. Councils, city councils across the country, private landlords, which have, maybe have 6,000 homes and things like that. They want their homes to be able to rent them. They want it to be manageable. They don't want bad press out. It's got to be controlled in a certain way. There's a protocol that we wrote for councils across the UK and private landlords in regarding how to deal with these matters. And I think most of them have got it. I think the last time I talked with council members was probably around about 6 years ago, and that was Stirling in Scotland that I was dealing with. But I've worked for many major councils across the country regarding this. And yes, there are reports. Yes, there are things that that are problematic for them, because at the end of the day, the tenants, seemingly the way the process is now, is have more rights than the landlords do, and they can utilize disturbances in their homes in an official capacity to avoid paying rent, because it's not a livable condition under the circumstances. It's very difficult for councils to get involved, because all they can do is send surveyors in, look for the electrical issues or geological
Exactly. Try
issues.
doing that in court. So you ain't gonna get anywhere, are you? Yeah.
No, but the problem is that you're setting yourself as a tenant. They're set against each other, the landlords and the tenants, because the tenant says, "Well, do you know what? I'm up all night. It's not a man. I can't. It's not a livable condition. So you rather sort this out. Otherwise, I'm not paying the rent." That's a big problem for them, because really they don't really know how to. Sometimes they were naive enough to get in touch with the church. Sometimes the church will come out and conduct blessings. Blessings on properties are only 12% successful. Um, and true statistics about that are very in a grey area anyway. So it's a matter of, how do we contain this? We don't want no bad press out to we don't want the press saying, "Oh, haunted houses, this, that, and the other," especially when people want to rent them homes. You want the homes to be rented. You don't want to put people off. And secondly, a controllable situation which might be able to manage the property, deal with the property. In some cases, some disturbances, we might advise the relocation of those people to other homes, but they'd have to sign an NDA first, to protect the company, so doesn't get out to the press, keep it low key. It's not always manageable. Sometimes the tenants do that, and they contact us after the tenants have already gone public, and that's not a it's not a good situation for them. So we try and manage that as best we can. But sometimes we advise them to relocate the people from homes, and what we refer to as the process of fallowing, which is leaving a house void of any UV light per 12-month period, and void of any electrical input coming into that property for 12 months, and try and starve the phenomena out in the process. Sometimes it's been helpful. Sometimes the phenomena has lied dormant and waited for the next people to come. Some properties are active no matter what. If you're blanket monitoring them and you've got no people, human agencies in those buildings, you can still have reported or recorded phenomena. So it depends on what type of phenomena we're dealing with here. Sometimes you get column effect hauntings in apartments and flats, where the upstairs flat is adversely affected in one of the rooms as it is downstairs in the same room for the other flat. It's what we refer to as column effect hauntings. So we try and make the homes rentable again under their conditions, so we try as much as we possibly can with them and guide them through that process.
Quality. Now, I have four questions or thoughts that we could thread off into. First off, from your initial story you mentioned about the MOD building, you mentioned there were reports of the security guards seeing bodies like run away, people run in or intrusions or whatever. Did they see them as solid bodies, or were
Yeah,
they seen? So they
they were
were.
seen as solid bodies. I mean, it got a full good description: grey pants, a grey sleeveless jumper, like a tank top, like what we might refer to in the UK,
Hmm.
a green khaki type shirt, brown hair, slightly curly, wavy, for about 5'7", booted, um, giving chase. I mean, he saw this a few times, including other, apparitions, which they were seen to be. They couldn't identify them not to be an intruder, to be honest with you, visually. Except the fact that they're monitoring all the building. There's about 40, 50 different cameras on that floor because it's a big building, and yet they're not seeing any physical intrusions coming in or out of the building, but yet there's this activity taking place. And the activity would increase during changes in the building. Because once you start making changes in the building, there was a lot of work taking place at that time, reconstruction of that building on some of those certain floors, seems to kick up activity because the when you start changing the environment, you're altering the levels of electromagnetic
The
energy.
energy flows and stuff. Yeah, I spoke to Anne Traherne of the Sir Arthur Conan Doyle Centre,
Yeah,
and
I know
we had that exact same story where the construction work had kicked off stuff.
it does.
It's
Yeah,
amazing.
I've advised many people when they've contacted me over the years, and I said, look, when we might be able to resolve something, if we do, and it is an if, there are no guarantees in this game, but if we do, then what we give them this kind of advisory paperwork afterwards, and it stipulates, look, do not. It's called the tremor, which is don't tamper. In other words, tampering is seances and Ouija boards and so. Don't tamper with the phenomenon, you know. And then renovations, extensions, alterations, modifications, tremor. Is what we've said.
Mm.
Don't do any of them for at least 2 years. We say 24 months. Some people have forgot. 5 months later, they go and decide to reconstruct part of the home, and the phenomena returns exactly at the back as it was. It didn't, it left just as it returned. It was exactly the same phenomenon. There was no difference, and it returned very quickly. And of course, they've kind of forgotten our advisory notes and stuff. Yeah, there's definitely an association with what we might refer to as environmental changes,
Yeah.
phenomena's interaction.
Okay, and so the next part of that was we spoke with me, myself and Anne had that conversation when we spoke about the building itself almost being like an electrical conductor of some sort, together with like the underground water, which this building had in its case, that sort of like strengthens a portal, if you will, not to run the pun on your thing from earlier. Is that from all your investigations where you think this is? It's just like a window or source to another
Right.
plane.
Do you know what? People ask this question a lot, and I say to them, look, there are dead bodies everywhere. We live upon.
Yeah.
I mean, years ago, hardly anybody went to hospital to die. They were always sent home to die. It's only more and more in modern times that that people die in hospitals. Most people were born at home and would die at home. We live upon a history of humanity, upon these people, and we build on them. We live on top of them.
Mm.
The whole process. Oh, oh, it's built on a graveyard of success. Yeah, there's a lot more to it than that. But the aspects of this is that when you've got certain locations, that location can seemingly capture not only residual phenomena, but also be an attraction for interactive or intelligent hauntings. When that occurs, we have to look what's empowering it, because there's a lot of disturbances of that level require energy. So where's the energy? We don't focus on the phenomenon. We focus on what's powering it. Where is it getting its energy from?
Mm.
There are geological things, sort of geological magnetic phenomena, which can be from underground water. I mean, this particular building, Sunlight House. I mean, if you look at it, it looks like something straight out of the Ghostbusters, original Ghostbusters movie. It's basically that design. And when you look at the plans of the building when it was constructed, huge metal girders and structures were ploughed into the ground, underneath the building, the footings. That footings had canals, old canals that ran through, delivery systems and stuff. So they got running water. You got this natural build-up, and what it does is it arcs across geomagnetically to the huge girders in the building, which is the main structures of those buildings. Because, like I say, it's built very much like the American 1930s and 40s builds, which were, if you look at them when they were being constructed, it was just all metal, and then they had concrete around. So it's a bit different how they do buildings nowadays. But it would stretch and create something a bit like an antenna, because what you're going to do, you're going to just go up and up, and as you're going up, you're getting closer and closer and closer, till you end up with like a big antenna, to be honest with you. With the geologicals, and then you move into the building and start putting electrical wiring around. Okay, now as that electrical wiring reached regulational standards for bonding to get to disperse, energy in the right manner, in more current times, we can say, yeah, bonding is a very important thing when dealing with any electrical systems in homes and buildings, because it's a matter of and if you send electricity down a wire just to put a light on, there's a generated electrical field around that wire. You'll know that from anybody who's got an EMF meter, to pick it up simply. But on a grander scale, when you're talking huge buildings like that, the old process of wiring are usually outdated. And the process of actually having them called completed is super expensive. So what you find is, if we've got an issue, then it gets repaired, and that section has to be repaired under the new regulations of bonding and making sure. But then you've still got 99% of the building, if it's still operative and working, that they're not going to do until it's a necessity to do so. So you've got all of that cloud inside the building. Plus, you start introducing the things that these buildings weren't created for, Wi-Fi and all these different types of electrical systems. I mean, most buildings in the 1930s and 40s had literally like one or two sockets plugs in a whole big massive room. Now you've got one room with 40, 50, 60 outlets powering computer systems and all sorts of things. What we tend to forget about the environment, because we're blind to it, but we tend to forget the environment we're living and working in. And when you look statistically at all the fundamentals of electricity and movement and magnetism in those locations are off the scale. And this is the world we live in. Unfortunately, we live in a world where it's off the scale most of the time, and we're unaware of it. But phenomena seemingly has a close association with it. And sometimes it will start to attract and generate phenomena. And when people vexate and stress and get fear about things, phenomena seems to retaliate with that and utilize those sort of things, a bit like poltergeist disturbances. And before you know it, you've got an unmanageable situation, not just with the human agencies in that building, but on a grander scale of the EMF and the GMF, and Wi-Fi and all sorts of different things now.
Yeah, so it's an amazing scenario when you really pull on the one thread, it leads to all those other things and then gets that mind thinking. Earlier, you mentioned about that chap that was reported, the ones running, and they were seen with certain clothes on. When I spoke to Lloyd Auerbach, he said some spectres or ghosts or whatever you want to call them had the ability to change their appearance. Was that same chap seen with different clothes on, and was it always the same clothes?
He was always wearing, I know Lloyd, and he is right by saying this, but under these circumstances, this particular gentleman, it was always described the same, was witnessed by all handover security officers, and all pursued him, because it's their duty to think.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Working for the Ministry of Defence, this building's a secure building. I mean, it's not just your local building where you can just think, oh, I'll just break in a window. So this is it's a Ministry of Defence owned building. The security is extremely high, and we knew that as soon as we entered there. The security process of us just getting into the building, the researchers, it was tremendously high, and they had to know exactly where we were, when we were, and what we were doing. We were monitored regularly. So the process is not your normal regulation of security. This is, it's extremely high, and when they are pursuing this individual, you're describing the same, but he would seemingly run through walls. Now, you go back in time to 1956, I believe. There was where this individual ran through a wall. There was a door. There was a doorway there.
Mm.
So you'd think, okay, well, it's a residual phenomena. However, he would be seen to glance at them and run from the security officers, and that's interactive. That's interaction. It's not residual because they're unaware. Residual phenomena is like a recording. They're unaware of the viewers, of the witnesses, but this was. So it was a combo effect of it was intelligent and interactive, and yet running through walls where doors once were in 1956. So it's a, the problem is that people, so many people, parapsychologists, for many years have wrote these rule books, these guidelines like, well, in poltergeist disturbances, there's always a focus or a catalyst. No, that's wrong. And this is the problem. People think that it's actually that's the Bible. It's written in stone. No, it isn't. There's so much variation across the board
Mm.
disturbances that we document that these findings that yes, you can have a poltergeist disturbances without a catalyst or focus. Yes, you can have a combo effect between residual and interactive intelligent hauntings. It is very, very variable, and they did pursue, and not just this gentleman, there were others that they'd seen, in that building, which they thought were real people.
I know that's another amazing thought to think. Now, you know the interaction between that chap running through that old doorway, looking back, seemingly interacting with the observers. I know you will have come across this thought before, but it's always amazing to think that those security guards are the ghosts to that guy living in the 50s or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know how we ever come to a conclusion about that, but it's a
Well, it's
possibility.
you're right by saying this, Paul, because we looked into this years ago about incidents that might take place in old stately homes from the Tudor days or castles in the UK. I mean, we have a lot, a lot longer history in the UK than, say, the Americas and whatever. And it is a bit different overseas. However, if you are to witness, as an example, and this is one of the examples we put forward, if you were to witness a gentleman in knight's armor, you know, and know that it isn't a period set tourist officer or something, dressed in period clothing, and it's under a controlled environment. Have you step back in time, a time slip incident where you're witnessing events in that castle at that time, or are you witnessing something as an apparition? You see, and it gets very problematic, as you can imagine, because it all bears down to the individual, the witness, and what they experience. And we don't know for sure, though that there is evidence to some time associated anomalies in regarding the paranormal, very little, to be honest with you, which just stand up to scrutiny. But there are a few which are very questionable. I would say the more likelihood is that you're witnessing something which is probably more residual in nature. Now, what we realized is that residual phenomena I wouldn't even say, the problems in this subject is terminology and the boxes that people have created. And people carry on using them. And I think to myself, why? You don't need to. Why do we have to do this compartmentalization between different sections of the paranormal? It doesn't have to have any of that, because then you tend to focus in that and not that one. And that's been a problem for many years. And they say, no, we've got to tear it all down. Forget it. These people were wrong. These things were said in the 1940s, 1950s, and they were inaccurate then. So don't use it. The problem that we have with residual phenomena is that we recognize that it's not really a haunting. A haunting isn't really that, I mean, um, it's more a natural geological phenomena. It's supernatural, you could say, beyond
Mm.
natural,
Yeah.
in a proper way, we would say supernatural or preternatural. But the output from the investigations or the research into that area would suggest that these are locations of what we refer to as prime trauma, or high energy trauma. Now, that always isn't the case. It's high energy because initially in 1980s, people brought forward that these are trauma locations. And yes, some of them are. It's battles, and we see, okay, Gettysburg, been there.
Yeah.
And other places where battles taking place, and occasionally you'll see the incidents take place. The Phantom Bombers of the Peak District, well, yeah, that's where they came down and crashed, and it's kind of a residual caught by the land and played back like a videotape. This shouldn't be interactive though, if it's residual, you know. So, but what we realise is that not always trauma. Sometimes we misidentify trauma as it's high energy because not always is it negative. You get residual phenomena around old buildings in the Tudors or pre-Tudor, which were like public houses or speakeasies, where you get residual phenomena, people enjoying themselves. You know, so it's not trauma, but in either case, it's high energy, and it seems that somehow earthly phenomena, which we can not really identify, but it is kind of supernatural in the sense, has the capability of recording high energy events and to be played back. It doesn't necessarily mean that's going to happen. It might have to go 40 years, 60 years, 100 years, 150 years before it manifests into that recording. And we get to hear some of those previous, you know, it's like a tape playing. Who knows, you know, maybe we might be doing exactly the same ourselves under certain conditions, only to 150 years away that someone's going to hear a conversation between two people at that time.
Well, that's an interesting thought because what that says is, right, let's just say me now sat here, I don't know, let's just say I have loads of electrical equipment going and all of a sudden it creates this recording effect. That might not physically be seen for another 150 years, right? So it won't be reported by anyone for the next 145 years, but then all of a sudden I'm a ghost then.
Exactly.
That's weird. I've never heard that before, but I like that.
Yeah, we're imprinted into the geological format of planet Earth.
And then it powers up to then be it ready enough to be seen. I
I mean,
like it.
it might have to take place. I mean, that building and construction of that event, it could take 100 years. It could take
Mm.
60 years. You know, I mean, I've been in locations where we've got recordings and incidents taking place of a siege, a battle siege at a castle, air raid signs and sounds going off, like as if it was from incidents from the Second World War. Yeah, but they are the high energy events. You know, I mean, even if it's stress and vexation or worry or fear, it can also be, you know, ecstaticness, enjoyment. You know, uh,
Mm.
the opposite. But
There's something cool there,
yes,
Steve, in that most people, if you tell them think of a ghost, they'll think of a poltergeist or something like that, and it'll always be associated with negativity. You don't often hear, "Oh, I got a happy ghost."
that's right. Yeah, I mean, we got some great cases, you know, where it's very thoroughly researched under the Stonewall theory sort of thing from back from the 70s, but it predates that. But you know, these were like old speakeasies and things, and you know,
Mm.
they would hear like maybe six, seven, eight people laughing and enjoying themselves, you know, and it's the same residual energy. It's the same residual phenomena. It's being caught, but not necessarily negative. Sometimes it is. It could be trauma.
Mm.
It could be a woman who's committed suicide. You know, it could be an incident that's taken place. It could be a battle. It could be something like that, a war. However, it can be the others. So it's saying, okay, well, it can't just be trauma. Let's look at what those events consist of. And it's the energy, it's utilized, it gets seemingly captured, no matter if it's negative or positive in some occasions, that gets trapped and it gets randomly played back. But I think it takes time to be built naturally,
Yes.
geologically, it has to be constructed. And it could take time. It could sometimes it's 40, 30 years, sometimes maybe less. Sometimes it's a lot longer. It's like, well, it's been 130 years, it's been 200 years. You know, has Gettysburg always been a location where people have seen residual phenomena? Well, let's say, okay, well, 50 years or 20 years after Gettysburg happened, was it? I don't, we've got some no reports of
Mm.
it. Why is it not then? Why is it not 30 or 40? Why did it have to go, say, 100 years or 200 years before people started to, oh, some strange things like the reoccurrence of the battles being seen? Maybe it takes time to construct that and play back. And it might be a natural earthly phenomena. And really, it's been wrongly termed as a haunting because it's just,
Yes.
we don't understand it.
Yeah, because our lifetimes are quite short, and the reportings don't go back
Over vast
many.
areas of time.
Yeah. I want to get to the building side of things because this was an interesting thing that me and Anne talked about a lot was the building side of things and powering up and being ready to then allow all the the ghosts or whatever to be seen. Do you think there have been buildings designed for the very purpose of being that portal?
Uh, that's a good question, actually. I don't think that they've been built purposely for that, but I do believe that certain construction methodologies, uh, the phenomena seemingly has is attributed to.
It makes me think of the pyramids, you see.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, the pyramids are they're certainly, energy devices. Absolutely,
Hmm.
we know that. But they're also sound. It's only a frequency
Sound
built.
resonators, that's right, yeah.
Exactly. That seemingly is more about encapsulation. Yeah, those ancient buildings. I've been to many of those, and we've done tests and experiments in them, and we know that's more about encapsulating energies. But what we don't tend to get is many of what you might refer to as poltergeist or haunting type effects in them. So you'd think, okay, well, why not? If you've got energies, it's not that. It doesn't seem to be that type of energy association. I mean, we do get EMF and GMF, but people have been wrongly terming it. I mean, they're ridiculous. It is, many paranormal teams all around the world think EMF meters are ghost detectors. They're not. But and they use mostly 99% of the time wrong. They're moving them around, walking around. Well, they're not designed for that. They're designed to do baseline readings and be left in a location and look for trigger points.
That's right.
Oh,
See
you
if
don't
anything
walk.
changes.
But
See
the
if it's
EMF, but female fields are everywhere. Even the equipment that people are carrying in, you don't realize that they're carrying walkie-talkies with them. They generate frequencies which affect equipment, RAM pods and all sorts of different things. And
do we emit enough to affect human
not
beings?
not that type of equipment, no, because there is equipment that can be affected by that, absolutely. But no, not really those type of things. But it's just wrongly recognized and used. Now, yeah, there's going to be EMF. There's natural energies. We walk through them all the time. It's going to be if you're wafting it around in the air, you're going to start picking things up. But sometimes it can be um, incidents where, and we've realised this where, oh right, well, can you put it up to 6 to us or 5 to us on a scale to let, as using it as a communication device. The problem is that it's only somebody in the background, and you don't have to be too far away, maybe 3 or 4 rooms away. They're keen their mic, they can make that light go up. What they don't realise that there are things that we can use to affect that.
Mm.
So the legitimacy of the material starts to disappear very quickly. And it's like, spirit boxes, they're designed to do what they do, and we get some great ones. What you don't see is the millions of ones which are absolute rubbish because they don't mean anything. It's only when, oh my God, well, it sounds like John. So, and we knew somebody called John maybe have died it. And that's what goes out. But it's designed to do that. You don't need equipment which is designed to do that. You don't, in fact, you want it to not do that. It's the opposite. So it's the worst equipment to use. The best equipment to use in a location is yourself. You're a piece of equipment. Forget the things. We've had
I've
people.
often been called a tool, so yeah.
Well, yeah, it's true. We are very. I mean, the whole point is when you're doing an investigation, you starve yourself of 72 hours of refined sugar, so that your body, because refined sugar, and what people do and go on these investigations, they're filling their mouths with chocolate and candy bars and Coca-Cola and hot chocolate, and all, you know, they boost the refined sugar levels up, which is a poison to the body. And what's it cause? It causes adrenal weakness. So basically, they just nullified themselves to their bodies to react under those conditions. Now, a lot of paranormal investigators will say, "Oh, I know what that is. I go into a certain room, suddenly all my hairs go up on my arm, and oh, I feel an oppression. I feel something." That is that warning mechanism, and we need to rely on that because that's just because we don't see it or hear it or other things doesn't mean it's not there. It's our warning mechanism saying something I don't like here. Let's take a step back. Not many people are doing that. Most people are ignorant to it because the body's not reacting because of the amount of refined sugar in the bodies. There's a process of utilizing yourself as a piece of equipment to identify phenomena, and we can do so. That whole survival sense is still there.
That's a lush a thread again here because I haven't equated this before in that obviously we're dulling our senses, our connectivity, if you will, to the electromagnetic field by, suppressing everything with crap food. That's an amazing thought, and maybe more people should think along those
Going on
lines.
time. It's not just food. It's all
Mm.
of it. It's air. It's the food.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
I mean, the plastic wrapping around everything we eat now. The genetically created fruit and all sorts of things. Our ancient ancestors were super heightened in regarding their conscious abilities, their spirituality, their capabilities of being able to hear, probably infrasonics or even ultrasonic sound. Um, they're certainly aware of the resonance of planet Earth, the human resonance at 7.8 hertz. That's impossible for us to hear, but they knew, because we know that they built certain things and did certain things in a certain way, that they are highly attuned to planet Earth and the energies and the frequencies and sound and light. And we're in a situation now that society's been dumbed down so much because of we are poisoned every day. It's limited our abilities so much that our ancestors would be super beings, really, compared to what we are and what we can, sense, our sensory inputs compared to them. But it's just a process of how we've developed over the years, and it's not going to get any easier. But if you can understand how we function, and regarding sensibility, 78% of homes sold, and we've done research into this, myself and my colleague, that they're sold on a feeling. You might go into a house and think, oh, it looks lovely. But when you go in there, if you've got a bad feeling, you're not going to buy the house. If you go in there and you think, oh, do you know what? It's got a really nice feel to it, you're going to likely buy it. That instinct, which we just don't put it, we don't think about it, but that intuitiveness is that development of how to use it, you see. And so we separate ourselves by ignoring it. I say, look, use it as a tool whilst you're out investigating phenomena, because it will tell you if you're in a location where maybe you should take a step back. It might tell you that you're in a location where there's certain types of energies that feel very good and you might be able to interact in a certain way. Don't become too reliant. I mean, there are some people that are amazing, what I refer to as some forms of catalysts, people that can capture EVPs, and it was amazing. I mean, I've used some of the best catalysts in the world, and they are incredible and remarkable of their capabilities that they can do. And they can capture no matter anywhere. You don't have to be even in a haunted location. You give them a certain device and they'll record EVPs on it, and loud, class A EVP returns. Some point to interact with them and ask questions becomes AVP, actual voice phenomena, that is replying to your questions. If you can build up the conjure. Now, some of these are so good. When we was utilized and we were sponsored by Olympus and using Olympus company for these devices, they sold thousands and thousands of these things. It's not because they were good at picking up EVP. It's because it's all down to whose hand it's in and operating it, which makes it.
And that person is an amplifier of sorts, I imagine.
That's exactly it. Yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned another quality thing earlier, which I'd never heard before, actually. You said ultraviolet. You are getting rid of ultraviolet light from locations. How does that play in?
Well, I mean, UV plays in UV is good in regarding negative phenomena. Okay, so the deliverance of UV into an environment is an important factor when it comes to disturbances, what you might refer to as problem disturbances. What I refer to as kind of the usual run of the mill. All these things are disturbances at night and that sort of thing. Flooding your location with UV assists. Certain negative phenomena doesn't like iron in the environment. That goes back a long time. In many countries all around the world, there's an invasion of iron with phenomena. So there is a management area. I mean, we've cleared the disturbances in buildings we've never been to. We would just communicate with the people having the problems, and we advise them to do a number of things, and it suppresses to the phenomena so much that we don't have the disturbances anymore. We've never had to.
Are you literally saying, like, open the curtains more and let more sunlight in?
UV is a very important issue when regarding negative disturbances that happen during the night, different frequencies at night. And of course, you've got no UV around. So introducing UV into an environment, even artificially through small bulbs, and little lamps and things, you'd hardly see them, but UV is on. Negative phenomena seems to only invades UV, it invades iron. Introducing these things. Sometimes phenomena, what people don't realize is that's not always external connections. Sometimes it's directly associable to your cells. And what they don't realize is that a negative phenomenon likes to attach itself to people with low iron in the blood. So we would say, okay, let's boost your iron content in your body It does target people with low iron in their body, the phenomena.
So, is there like a link data wise with anemic people and phenomena? Is that
Yes.
ever been put in? Whoa, whoa.
Yeah. You know, like 97% of abductees are.
Really? Anemic?
Mhm.
What's that sort of telling you or sending you down the path of thinking?
Well, if you can go back into ancient times, you know, we might look at these old books about the Incas and the Aztecs and, you know, all these different Mayans and different gods, deities, and the sacrifice, blood sacrifice to them. Now, when we read those books and look online, it's always a man. It's always a man. It's up there on the altar. You know, he's getting sacrificed. It wasn't. They don't tell you that. It was women. We only did that with women, mostly during their menstrual cycle because there was less iron in the body because that's what the deities wanted. Having less iron
Oh.
in the body is associable to a lot of various different types of experiences, including intelligent entities, which are non-human, what we refer to as non-human intelligences. They're exactly the same thing. The problem is that we separate these boxes, these compartmentalization process, which might have been done on purpose and introduced purposely to separate them so you don't connect the dots. But ufological experiences like that, when you're dealing with contact type experiences, is a paranormal act. It's paranormal phenomena. It's just misinterpreted, not to make the connect the dots, but they're all connected, all of them.
Which brings me then to my next thought. Before I get there, actually, because this is linked to the UFO side of things, the anemia thing, and you're saying that 97% of abductees are anemic, or at least reported that way. I've always heard of the thought between like Rh negative blood
Mhm.
and the alien phenomena, but not the anemic thing before. Whoa, you've given me another
Anemia,
food for
yeah,
thought.
anemia is
Yeah.
very closely associated. Look,
Mm.
1977, 1978, right? One of the biggest cases in the world, which you might say is negative, the Colares UFO incidents, took place on a small island off the shore of Brazil called Colares. Over 1,000 people, 1,200 people were attacked by these UFOs, lights that came down. The lights, they couldn't get away from it. The lights would penetrate the roofs of the houses through walls. They'd wake up in bed with this beam of light coming through the wall or the ceiling and hitting them, and they were paralyzed, extreme pain, but couldn't move for that process. How horrific is that? 6 to 9 different puncture wounds were appeared on that, and they extracted the iron from the body. These people being prepped for contact. This is the phenomenon.
Oh, I see.
Over 1,200 people. Some of them were affected so badly that they had hospitalized. Some of them even died, you know, through that experience. Now, that's not the only time that's happened. It's happened quite a number of times. You know, sometimes the phenomena will like prep for certain individuals. These agendas usually take place where there's not many police, no military bases around, usually an island in the middle of nowhere, or they haven't got much defense. And these agendas tend to take place on occasion around the world, and that has been. And it's no different in regarding the paranormal phenomena. You know, negative phenomena in the paranormal, you'll find that there's a lot of people that are having these experiences. If it's women, it might be during the menstrual cycle, or that they actually have low iron in the blood. So we always advise, you know, first thing to do is don't look at it as an external phenomenon. Let's deal with it internally first, because there's a connection. It's a phenomenon, an interaction. It's a conduit. It takes two to tango. It's never just
Mm.
one thing externally reaching out. There's a reason for it. And you try and make it as uncomfortable for it as possible. You raise your own iron levels. You introduce UV around you more commonly. You also, put iron around. There's good reasons why to utilize iron. It's been going on for a long, long, long time. You know, if it's not the gin and using hematite, which is about 90 odd percent iron, to get rid of gin, you know, in the Middle East, it's throughout Europe. It was putting the iron horseshoes around, and there's nothing to do.
Mm.
It's about iron,
Yeah.
nothing to do with luck. That's why it was placed over doors to keep the award away negative phenomena. In medieval times, they utilised iron nails around beds in Tudor homes and things like that to ward away the negative phenomena. Throughout Sweden, Switzerland, and Germany and other places, they use iron rods around farms to protect livestock from being taken or killed, you know, by the phenomena. It goes on. There's thousands of variations.
Ah.
If people don't realize, you know, when you look at a church, you look at a medieval church, and why are they separated between the realms of, you know, why they got wrought iron gates and fencing around. You know, but the whole point about this is it's right in our faces. They know this. It's a tradition that goes back thousands upon thousands of years all over the world.
And why do then the people nowadays look back on that and just take it with a pinch of salt and think, oh, it's all old wives' tales, it's all crap? Yet that's accumulated knowledge, presumably across eons, that they utilised. And
The same thing in the island with the Fae. You might have refer them to the Fae in Ireland.
mm,
You know, you look at them back hundreds and hundreds of years. You know, they knew about this phenomenon and how to ward it away with utilising iron. They used to put iron across babies' cribs actually to stop them being abducted and taken in the night kind of phenomenon. Now they might have been referred to as fairies or gentry and things like that, but it's the same phenomenon. It's just a different mask.
mm. Which leads me to earlier you mentioned balls of light were reported at the MOD location. So let's get your thoughts. I mean, you can theorize here on what you think these balls of lights are. Are they linked with a UFO? Are they just like an energy form, like a ghost that hasn't appeared as a person? Or is it a mixture of both? Where do you lie?
Well, I don't think it's a mixture, but I think it's all one thing. Just
Everything is one thing.
I think everything's one thing. We put them into these different boxes.
Okay.
You know, now don't get me wrong. I mean, the phenomenon delivers things in different ways. You know, and when it delivers it a certain way, we might refer to it as supernatural or spiritual or metaphysical or paranormal or ufological or cryptological. It goes on and on and on with these wonderful boxes that have been created. But scrap what you're watching, scrap what you're seeing, scrap what's been reported. Let's look at the phenomena. The phenomena is always the same. It's metaphysical, it's interactive. You know, when you start to trace the capabilities of this phenomena, it never alters. It's always been the same since, well, maybe since the beginning of time. And it's always been here, this phenomenon. How it delivers varies, and that's the mask. And if you track the mask, you'll lose it. You'll start creating these different boxes for different things. But it is all one and the same thing at the end of the day. It's just how we want to, how we want to conduct that and do the research to demonstrate those. But it's very problematic because we do have a lot of people that are setting these, they're just working these boxes. The UFO guys won't work with the paranormal guys and vice versa. And the paranormal guys are screaming out to try and understand some of this. So UFO guys are. But the thing is, they're not going to go over. They can't find the data what they want. Well, they can't extract in their heads. Well, we go around in a circle and see what we can do to find it. We don't need to. They just got to go to the other camp because
Yeah,
somebody
step back and look at the bigger picture. Yeah.
is step back and look at a bigger picture. And you realise, hang on a second, the metaphysical aspects of this UFO phenomenon is no different than the parapsychological test that took place, where the phenomenon demonstrated metaphysicality, not only of UFOs manifested around the sales table, but also non-human entities long before the UFOs were on the scene. These things have been going on for a long time. And they've demonstrated metaphysicality by having physical items, which are balls of light, and you can feel weight to them. They can land in your hand. You feel weight, mass to them.
Oh, someone's reported that, have they?
Oh, God, well, we've been involved in experiments like this.
Oh.
The materialization and the manifestation process, which is tied into metaphysical actions that this phenomenon wants to demonstrate. These things can bounce on the table, then go through the table, up the table, through the table. There is incidents during experiments where a vase gets moved across the table, only about five inches or so. And, we're told vocal-wise, DVP, direct voice phenomena, nor male nor female, it's electronic. You can't actually say exactly what, but it's always above you. If you stood up, it's above you. If you sat down, it's above you. And they'll say, move it back. So you move it back. And then you'll slide across again, and they'll say, move it back. And you go to reach out for it, and you put your hand right through the damn thing. You swear it is there. You can see it. It's three-dimensional. It's there. You can't tell it's not there. It's real until you go to put your hand through it, and your hand goes right through it. And then they'll say, reach out again. You reach out, and it's physical. So what they've done is they've created this item and manipulated it, its metaphysics, so that it looks to be in our reality, but it isn't. And then they can do something, and it makes it physical in nature. This is what we have with the UFO phenomena. When we see UFOs on film, they're going into water, but there's no wake. Well, that's because we might see them in our reality, but they're not physical in nature until they want to be. And this is why they don't have, sonic booms, why they don't have wakes when passing aircraft. There's no splash water. They go into the water, and there's no wakes, and there's no restriction to its speed and stuff. That's because the phenomenon is all the same, and it interacts with us. We had the UFOs around seance tables and stuff manifesting, small ones, and they are real. firing pencil beam lights down onto the table and moving around and stuff. They are associable to the phenomena, not that this is this and this is that. We've created the boxes, you see.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
It's quite comfortable to interact with others in various different ways.
Yeah, Lloyd was of the mind that everything's the same thing, or or with small overlap if there was slight separation. But yeah, one thing, and it makes you really think. I'm gonna have to readjust this one. Now, a couple more questions on this before we move on. A thought that came up earlier when you said about the building owned by the MOD and other councils, government agencies and stuff, knowing that these events taking place on governmental properties. Would you have thought that at some stage, because there's going to be evidence provided by you and all their employees, that they would almost want to come out with a statement to say ghosts are real or the phenomena is real?
Yeah, well, first thing is if you're working for any government official, you're not going to talk because that carries with you. He doesn't know even if you might not work for that company anymore, but you're still under the NDA. It'll last because it's part and parcel of your when you sign in to work for them. And normally, because I've done work for these companies, you usually have to sign 2 official secrets acts, and that encompasses so much, not just about the work you're doing, but anything associable that might cause any conflict, damage, or anything to those, to that work, or those proprietors, you're working for. So the staff aren't really going to talk. If you're lucky, if little bits do get out, but they get escalated quickly by rumors and facts that aren't true. What isn't manageable is when it's general public. Very hard to manage the general public unless they're getting something that they want. So in other words, if we are to relocate them to another building, which is always better than the building that they're in, we always make it a good gift because there's something in it for them. And when offering that, then they're tied to an NDA because and that NDA would be damaging to the business if it was broken. So in other words, we're quite happy to assist. We will relocate you. We'll assist with relocating you. It'll be a nicer home, nicer place. The council will do, or these private landlords will do what they can to assist, but don't talk about it. Don't want it damaging to the company. We got to rent our homes at the end of the day and da 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 da. So, they always make it quite a good offer, and that was part of our protocol, writing up for the protocols of how to deal with these issues many years ago. And those have been copied and placed throughout across the country. They've all got our protocol sheets now regarding how best psychologically and physiologically to deal with these incidents, not just on an outside basis, but for clients, treating them as clients.
But it's interesting to note that all these, reports are coming from different branches or arms of the government, even how small it could be, whatever small building. But you would have thought all that would have get fed back and said, oh, there must be something to this phenomenon because all these different branches or buildings are reporting it.
Yeah, I mean, of course it does. I mean, the thing is that it doesn't just happen to sort of the military buildings. It happens to many, many different buildings. I mean, I've done supermarket chains. I've done it for Tesco's. I've done it for Booth Supermarket. I've done it for Woolworths. I've done it for Asda. I mean, Sainsbury's as well. Actually,
You've done the whole gamut of them.
I've done them all.
Have you done Aldi and Lidl?
Not done Aldi or Lidl, funny enough.
They haven't been here that long enough, maybe. So
yeah, maybe, but certainly, and especially when these buildings are new constructs and they're going through changes and things like that. Sometimes you get a kick up. And I've worked confidentially for these people, and sometimes it's not controllable because staff, will talk. When I investigated Booth's supermarket in Knutsford in the UK, in Cheshire. When we got, they wanted us to look into the disturbance that were taking place there. It was built over the old hanging, where they used to hang people for crimes. The actual building's over it, and there was also jail there. And it would tie in with the whistling and the key shaking sounds at night when staff were working there, stuck in shelves, they'd hear this. Disturbances of things being dragged up into funny enough, the whole store had artificial plants up on the very top, which would go around the store, look really nice. But only one of them was real, and it was that one. And it takes 4 men to lift this thing down because there's a massive big cheese plant type thing, and it was dragged up and down the aisles one night, and we have no idea how that feat took place. But there was, problems with numerous the electronics of the tills, and just only two of the tills. So it was kind of a very localized location. The staff taught, and it went to the Knutsford newspapers picked up on it, and they ran it. So, and Booths, we got involved, and they sat us down and said, "Well, do you know what? There's been a leak." And he said, "It's not an internal leak." He said, "It's not us. It's not us. It's not an internal leak. It's an external leak." He said, "You've got to go to your staff." So they had to manage their own staff. We can't manage, we don't do it. They have to manage their own staff. About, look, you don't go to the press, but it was a bit late because it was after the horse had already bolted. I think there were maybe two or three different articles appeared in the Knutsford newspaper regarding the disturbances at Booth Supermarket. It's not what Mr. Booth wanted, but at the end of the day, it wasn't control, and it's hard to control people. You got to think ahead of the time, to try and manage the situation.
I kind of don't want people to be controlled anyway. I like these stories coming out from
Well, I
people,
do.
I know you do, but,
I
I
love
know
it.
you're doing that on a corporate basis, so I understand
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah.
Last bit on the investigation side of things before we move on. What do you get out of investigation yourself? Is it a mystery that needs solving, or is something else at play for you personally?
For me, it's the science. It's always been advancing the study of the science because you know what? I mean, we're 160 years in on the subject of the paranormal. What we learn, are we still chasing our
Hmm.
tail? Are there still people running around in homes and in buildings with infrared cameras in the middle of the night just to get spooked? Yes. It's not advancing the science. It just hinders the science.
Correct.
And for me, it's about pushing forward, trying to work out exactly what this phenomenon is, what its capabilities are, what are its limitations. We now know through we've done some very heavy stuff, apportations, the analysis, the scientific analysis of apportation, and how they are, that might not actually be an apport of the original item. It might be a mimic, it might be a quantum anchor to deliver phenomena. Might
Ah, that's a good one, isn't it? Yeah, the real object is over there somewhere, and then it's quantum linked to here. So
Yeah.
do you think all those apported pennies, people will suddenly lose them from their penny jars,
But you know what? I've got drawers full of them because if there's an apport if there's an apports are taking happening at locations when we're investigating, we remove the apport straight away. And what happens is we get a sudden suppression of phenomena. Might only last a day or two, but then it backtracks there. Sometimes the phenomena tracks to the apports. So it acts like a quantum anchor. So it's like the deliverance of phenomena. I'll leave something in the environment. You wouldn't.
Ah, yeah, and then that gives
So
them a nice tether to it.
it's a tether, yeah. And
Yeah.
what we found was that sudden suppression causes confusion until it realizes what's what and delivers it back to its location. But when we look the physicality of these objects that have been apported, the problem is that some of them there's so much diathermic alterations in them that the computer systems can't even recognize them as the original item. It might suggest, well, it isn't the original item, though that it looks the same, weighs the same, feels the same. It's very hard to identify.
What, so
But
we can scientifically look at an object and say, right,
yes,
that makeup of that object is not what it was originally recorded as.
that's right. That's exactly what
Whoa,
we've done. We've done it on ceramics, ceramic apports. We've done tests on the microscopic level of atomic
crikey.
microscopy. And when you look at them and you bench test it against another item which is identical from the same pack, which isn't an apport, you can see the massive difference. So you do the structure analysis on the unapported item, the bench test item, sample item, and that's your bench level then of what details consist of. You want to match that. When you bring in the apported item, and you look at it. Oh no, it was so far from it. The computer system said it wasn't even the same item. So is it a mimic? Is it come from somewhere? Is it about deliverance, a tether, a quantum anchor to deliver the phenomena? It starts to get very interesting. But
Hmm.
what we do notice is that the diathermic alteration in that mug was exactly the same as a plant biological traumatology test report of a UFO that manifested close to the ground, witnessed by several people individually, and then it kind of imploded and disappeared, but it affected the plants and the plant growth. So science guys come out and do the analysis on the plants. The alteration of those plants matched the same, pretty much more or less exactly the same as the alterations found in the imported mug. So does the manifestation of a mug and the manifestation of a UFO utilize the same physics here?
Is it two? It could be two things, couldn't it? It could be the actual transportation of that object, which leaves that imprint on it or changes it molecularly, or it could be a fingerprint of the, let's call it a dimension from where they come from.
Product. Yep. I mean,
Yeah.
this is what this is why I am trying to advance the phenomenon study. Okay,
Yeah,
now
I love this.
we cannot stay static anymore. We've got to push forward. And that's through experimental research. And, now we have some great equipment and great science, things that we can apply to this, which gives us answers. And I tell you, there's quite a fundamental amount of this. It's landing in the quantum mechanics area.
Mm. Do you know what? I could do a whole episode with you just on apports because I think it's one of the most interesting things out there, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm gonna ask one more question about it actually. You know the penny, right? Let's just say a penny gets apported to where you are, your location, and you physically remove that and lob it in a river somewhere. Do you think somewhere there's an observer looking to find where that's was originally sent? They say, "Oh, it's not there. Where is it?" And then they somehow locate it in the river and think, "What the bloody hell's going on?" Someone's
Well, I mean, when we remove apports immediately from the environment to try and suppress the phenomenon to see if it is acting like a quantum anchor, and yes, they did to do so. However, it's only short-lived. They seem to work out the return path back. So we might have people saying we're having poltergeist disturbances on a regular basis all day long. It's high frequency, high severity case. You remove the apportation immediately, and then you've got nothing for 2 days, and you think it's not normal. Why has it just been suppressed over 48 hours and then suddenly returns back after that? So there's a pattern to our events of removing apports. Sometimes, though, they're clever enough to actually manifest the apport back. The items might disappear from our collection and they reappear back at their home. Pennies have returned, items have returned when they try to get rid of. So sometimes the phenomenon redelivers them. So it's important for them to redeliver.
yes, it's
The
obviously like
importance
it's
what's the
that tether you're
importance of
talking about.
delivery? Exactly.
Here's a thought though, right? So let's just say a home is haunted, we'll call it, and a penny is the tether to that haunting, right? That's one of the things. And you go and lob that into your next door neighbour's garden. Has there been any stories of them getting then
Yeah, I
haunted for
mean,
a couple
well,
of days?
we've removed apports, and sometimes the phenomenon does follow the apport on minute
Yeah,
date.
that's what my thought
So
was.
what? So in other words, we've taken a phenomenon from the house. It's seemingly targeting the location because it's left a marker in there, a tether.
Mm.
It knows where to deliver the phenomena to. However, by biolocating the items, whatever they are, these things, what they consist of, if they're mimic or what, that the phenomena does trap them on many occasions. But it kind of realizes because we're dealing with a phenomenon, it's clever and evolves. You
You know what
know?
it is, don't you? It's a Google pin, which
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
essentially saying this whole bleeding
right.
thing is a matrix. I swear, and somebody's
Well,
up there
you're,
clicking the
you're
mouse.
actually getting very close there, Paul, because you know what? The management of our reality, and I will say that, I won't say this lightly, but there is management of our reality, and the phenomena is part and parcel with that.
Yes, and that phenomenon is almost like a laser pointer, and we're the cats in this analogy.
Yeah,
Oh, how's he going to react to that? That is what it is, isn't it?
it is.
The
Yeah,
more and more I speak to people, the more I think it's going that way.
it is. And it's definitely going that way. I mean, the studies now are taking place in the quantum realm. Quantum mechanics aspects of this phenomena are very, very intriguing. And we're realizing the manifestation and materialization processes. We're working out a lot of different things, but this is what the study of this is what I specialize in. Is called paranormal mechanics, um, and it's looking at on the very small pieces that make it work. Why is there a mechanism? Why is there like a rule book to some phenomenon? Why is poltergeist phenomena always starts with audible disturbances, then into physical manipulation and object manipulation and interaction? And so why is it always that process? Why is there a pattern of events? It's like it's a computer program. It's like
Mm.
and when you start to realize, you think, okay, it's intelligent, it's evolving, and yet it delivers like a computer program. And the more you get into that, the more you start getting realizing about how it has a relationship in regarding the manipulation and alteration of our reality.
And thus you can then work out how to avoid the manipulation by understanding the code. I can truly see why you've gotten into this because
Mm.
my mind would work similar to yours in that it's just endlessly fascinating and you want to get to the realities and the mechanics of it.
Yeah,
It's
I don't
amazing.
exactly. I mean, look, you know what? Though I'm always intrigued to talk with people about their experiences and stuff, but you know what? It's just another stone to the mountain we've got.
Yeah.
We've got to get past this. It's not about evidence gathering of another photograph or another video. We know this stuff's real. We don't need proving this anymore. There's a lot of hokey stuff out there. Yeah, there's a lot of disinformation out there, but we know this stuff is real. We know that it's age old, and yet we don't need evidence to point yet. Oh, this is another evidence to show it's real. Well, we know it's real. Now what? What's the next step?
What's
Well,
the
the
how
next
and
step
what's
is
the
to
why? Yeah.
identify why and how.
Yes, exactly. That's my thoughts on that. And funnily enough, I know that's a great area of topic, and I could probably write a shed load more of questions on that, and maybe that's one for the future. But I do actually want to move into the the story side of things with the Rochdale Poltergeist, if you don't mind.
Oh yeah. Well,
You co-authored the Rochdale Poltergeist, a true story, with Jenny Ashford. For people who've not heard about the case, could you tell us about it and how you became involved and all that sort of stuff?
well, yeah. I mean, let's just first identify this is a poltergeist infestation. In 41 years, I've only done 6 investigations. No matter what you see on YouTube, on the internet, and stuff, where people say, "Oh, we got poltergeists," and all these, I guarantee most of them are fake. I know that from traveling all over the world doing these investigations. That true paranormal poltergeist infestation are rare. Okay, now let's establish that. But secondly, they are the most resourceful and most demonstrable phenomena in the world. Very clever about how they use the resources. It's about resourcing energy. They are parasitic phenomena. There are other types of parasitic phenomena. Some of the cryptid phenomena is parasitic, but the poltergeist feeds on, it's a fear feeder, it's a vexation cycle feeder. So it generates actions on purpose for you purposely. You're not going to misidentify. You're not going to go, did I put my cup there? Or was it there? You won't get to that. It will be so ridiculous, like the cup was somewhere where you'd never put it. This is how resourceful they are. They must demonstrate that you know its phenomena so that you stress and vexate about it. So it feeds from that to generate the next act. It's a parasite. So the whole thing about this is that when we're dealing with, I mean, I've done the Washington State poltergeist, which is another, there's actually a full documentary out there on the YouTube. If you, I think you have to just Google Demons in Seattle Uncovered, Demons in Seattle Uncovered, because it was in Seattle when we did that investigation. Rochdale Poltergeist is another one. We were called in to assist Rochdale Poltergeist, Rochdale Council, prefabricated bungalow. It should only have been temporary home, but it wasn't. People are still living in them, believe it or not, since the Second World War. Very small Gardner family lived there, having disturbances of poltergeist infestation. But a certain aspect of it, which was very prevalent, was the water manifestation. Now, don't get me wrong, you've had water, we get water manifestations, another liquid manifestations in poltergeist is rare. And I only know of at least maybe 1 or 2 other cases worldwide of water manifestations. But it wasn't tap water and it wasn't rainwater. It was unknown, and we had the water captured and analysed by Northwest Water Laboratories with the help of an organisation in Manchester. And it was very interesting because the conductivity level of that water was crazy. It wasn't, we proved that not tap water and it's not rainwater. This was during, believe it or not, it was a heat wave in August of 1996. It lasted for a few weeks. We had hosepipe ban. It doesn't happen very often, as you can imagine. But it was
Hosepipe bans happen all the time round by me.
perfect timing, though, because you can quickly say, well, it ain't rainwater. What's happening? Well, it's not tap water. And in fact, the manifestations took place on doors, on the ceilings. It was raining. And just imagine this scene. Mr. Gardner goes off to say, I'll make you a cup of tea. This is absolute real. And he goes off to make us a cup of tea in the kitchen. Then he shouts us, and I walk into the kitchen. I look up. It's raining. It's raining in the kitchen. And I don't mean a drizzle. I mean heavy, heavy drops. In fact, I look over at my cup of tea. It's got a bit of milk in it. And the drops are that big, it was hitting my mug, and the milk was jumping out. And I looked up, and the whole ceiling is a shimmer, and it's rain. He sat there on a small 4-leg stool, tall one, with an umbrella up, sat there with this smirk on his face. I will never, ever get that thought out of my mind, that
I bet you
vision.
won't.
And as quickly as it started, it ended, and it just disappeared. It didn't leave anything, and what hit the floor was left, but the water from the ceiling, the shimmer, gone.
And it was literally every square inch of that
Every
ceiling was
part,
this portal, should we call it, the shimmer.
every part was just a shimmer. Now, sometimes it would arc itself like in other areas around the building, the hallway, for an example. we caught it creeping across the ceiling. It was very unusual because he had a light fitting on the ceiling. It'd creep around it, divert around it. But it was interesting because he'd have little bits of water come out, and then the rest of it would move along a little bit and move along. And it was like, it was weird. Look, it was intelligent or something. It's odd. Samples were taken of that against normal sample water. That's when we got the analysis done. Apart from that, though, you had your other, you know, your typical type of poltergeist disturbances, items, the radio was working on its own without being plugged in, things that get thrown around, apportations took place. You know, we had the family eventually relocated, utilizing, you know, because we're dealing with clients here, which is Rochdale City Council, to try and determine and help, you know, the situation under the process of the protocols and the things that we deal with. We had them relocate to another home, which was a lot better. But the phenomena did go with them for about 2 or 3 weeks, and then faded. It trapped them, but it only lasted for 2 or 3 weeks. And since then, they've been not had any issues. But the property was left fallowed, void of electricity and UV in there for just over a year, and then a specialized report questionnaire sent out. Nothing to do with the determinate, you know, determining if it's paranormal. You can't ask new owners, is anything paranormal going on? They'll want to know. But there's certain questions that you can ask on this special report, what gives you the answers without asking about questions about paranormal. It's a very clever form about to questioning, and we know from the results of what those remarks are if it's still continuing or not. And luckily it wasn't, because like I said, the phenomena tracked with the family for about 3 weeks and then just suddenly ended. So we managed to assist the situation. But I also got thumped in the back there. Now, I'm quite a big guy. It takes a lot to get me across and I was literally thrown in on top of a small dressing table in front of me. I was sat on the end of the bed.
Jeez.
And but before I spent some years as an engineer. One of them was an electrical engineer as well. So anybody knows when an electrical engineer, you get electric shock sometimes. You learn from that. The way the current works now, which is more safety, it repels us rather than us latch onto it. And it throws us away. And when I did get a physical punch, I had the mark and a bruise about so big on my back for a few weeks. And I admit it hurt like bloody hell. But I'm a big guy, and I thought, how did I get on top of that little dressing table ahead of me? It was like I got an electric shock and a physical punch at the same time. And that's interesting because you get a lot of natural electrical phenomena taking place around the poltergeist disturbances and an association with that. I mean, at that moment when it first happened, that was my first interaction of a physical nature. Whilst I was joining the investigation, an active investigation as an investigator. I think it was concerning. I thought, well, I did think about this. Maybe this isn't the subject for me, because
I was going to ask you that. That would have made you question your commitment.
It scared the hell out of me, Paul, to be honest with you at the time. But you know what? Maybe about a few weeks later, it was like, sat there thinking, how does it do that? What? Well, the energies that are involved. Da, da, da. And here I am. I'm back in it still. You know what I mean? And moved on all those years. But at that time, it was like, whoa, no, this is not for me. I'm going back to, engineering or something. I'm just not for me. But
did it leave a mark on you, like in the shape of a fist or anything, or was it just a red area?
It was immediately red, but it did bruise, and it left a bruise for about 3 weeks.
But it wasn't in the shape of a fist or anything like that, or was it? Was there
any
definition between the fingers?
It was kind of a shape as if you'd been hit, but it was no outline. But it was definitely just slightly oval. It hurt like hell. Yeah,
it's just it makes you think, doesn't it, whether the poltergeist is really in a human form, or if it's something else, if it leaves a human.
That's the problem. Yeah, I mean, though that you can get physicalities, from poltergeist infestations, but a lot of them, they can manifest what you think they might be. If you think it's Uncle Albert, they might appear to be Uncle Albert. We know cases like that. However, when you get thumped like that, a physical, it's an injury, then you realize that there is, what might limitations or capabilities of the phenomenon represent, and how do you protect yourself against that? Well, I'll be honest with you, you can all sit around in circles and chant and do all this pink light and protection and stuff on. You know what? It doesn't work. It does not work. If they want to interact with you on a physical level, they will do. And there's nothing you can do about it. And this is the problem when you're dealing with it. If you're walking into those circles and you want to interact with that environment and that phenomena, then you have to take on board that the possibility of having those types of experiences. And you've got to make sense of it psychologically, how you endure that and how you deal with that.
Well, how do you deal with the fact that a ceiling was raining?
I have no idea. But I'm not.
But you have been.
Really, it's a manifestation. So we know that lots of different things get manifest during these certain parapsychological experiments. It's no different than the manifestation of a newspaper. You know, a newspaper, two newspapers actually during the Skull experiment manifested from 1936. It was real, 1936 ink. It was the right type of paper from 1936. It was the right type of newspaper from 1936. It was a Daily Mail. Or was it Daily Mirror? Daily Mirror. It's not the new Daily Mirror, it was the red top papers as we know, it was the old versions.
Yeah.
It was analysed to hell, that thing. And the best way you can describe it was an original, as if it just come off the mint. It was mint, just come off the press, in a sense. What was interesting is that they kept it in a glass case out of UV, and that newspaper aged approximately 500 days per day until it browned so quickly. From 1936 to 1998, I think it was 98, the manifestation of it, the physical apport, it was affected through the process of time, which is interesting because when we get like metal things, spoons and coins, you can put them on a shelf for 100 years and go and pick them up, they'll be no different. But sometimes some apportations show evidence, when they can show evidence, that there's a lineage of sound is something variating in regarding its time balance.
Does that, obviously they've been taking back your quantum thing from earlier, they've been apported from 1936 because it was a brand new mint copy of the Daily Mirror, and it's come forward.
But the time,
does that mean that the phenomenon is in 1936, or is the time irrelevant?
Not necessarily. I mean, the phenomena can pluck things out of reality at any time, I believe.
So it can pick it from 36, 72, 84, whatever.
Exactly, just like blueprints, yeah. But when it materializes and becomes realism in our reality, then it's bound by the physics of our reality. And that physics shows that newspaper from 1936 is going to be relevantly different in 1998 as opposed to 1996, and it catches up very quickly.
That is the computer program again, because it's then analyzing itself, saying, "No, that shouldn't be there. It would look like this now."
Yeah, it's a modification process. Yeah,
yeah.
To our reality of time. Yeah, it's you. There you go. The same thing. I keep telling you,
yeah, it's right. When you think along these lines, it's
yeah.
I'm going to think about this conversation for a long time. What makes a poltergeist as opposed to standard ghost A?
Well, the thing is, it might not be any difference because some people have communicated with poltergeist infestations, and got intelligence responses which claim that they are forms of spirit. I doubt that very much. I think the likelihood of spirit as we know it is not good evidence. However, there seemingly is some form of intelligent entity which can interact and can manifest in numerous different ways. I mean, there was a case in the 1970s in Yorkshire where a young girl, a schoolgirl, 15, went missing, and she was missing for a long time, and the police eventually, because you know what they say, after 24, 48 hours, it starts getting really problematic, and the likelihood of return after 2 weeks is usually zero. And it was assumed that she'd fallen to foul play, and family were, they besides themselves, they thought she'd been killed or something. Over a period of months, she had other sisters and brothers living there. You can imagine the stress and the vexation they were going through, this family. And her apparition started to be seen in the house and become interactive disturbances. That secured to them that their daughter was no longer living and had passed over, and something bad had actually happened. Now that hammered home for them. She wasn't here anymore. Surprise, surprise, though. About 6 or 7 months later, there was a knock at the door, and there she was. She'd run away with a boyfriend and was in love at 15 and realized she made a big foul up and she'd come back home. The aberration of her was the phenomena of the poltergeist infestation. The infestation of poltergeist was attracted to the vexation and the stress that family were under, thinking that the daughter had been killed. And it manifested what they thought it to be. So the poltergeist infestation can seemingly cause materializations of things that you might think it is. So if you think it's Uncle Albert, it could be Uncle Albert, it could be, it could be numerous different things. But the source of the phenomena is intelligent and clever. And we also know that the possibility of the quantum entanglement and changing the waveform through the dual slit experiment comes into play with the poltergeist phenomenon. That's why, I mean, I was doing an interview once with another investigator of a woman, poltergeist type disturbances, and then we were both sat talking to her opposite her on chair. And as we were talking, something caught my eye, and I looked over and I looked at this other chair, which had a cushion on it. And I knew something had caught my eye because, just a bit like a T-Rex, something just slightly moves and because we're predatory, we kind of looked, so what is that? Looked, couldn't see anything. I looked at the other investigator, he was also locked on it also. And I looked at him and he was looking directly what I was looking at. And I said, did you see something move? And he said, yes. It was a cushion. I said, well, look at the cushion, it's not moving. And we watched and no, there was nothing. Maybe we thought, well, it was unusual that we both saw or something. No. Anyway, we went back to talking to the witness, and you know what I'm going to say, it just flunked itself across the room because it might have been caught quantum locked into our environment. Because when we're looking at the cushion, the electrons in the cushion are acting differently. The waveforms are acting differently. So we might have been quantum locking this phenomena from moving and trajectorying through the air. And this is why that we get a lot of things. It's always off camera because we're not watching. We're not monitoring. We're not looking. We're not viewing it.
Yeah.
Therefore, once that we release it to do its action. So there's a lot of there's a lot of work in the poltergeist area. That we've done over the years, but. It's interesting that these incidents do happen, but they're rare. They're not like a haunting. It's highly adaptive to what people might consider it to be. Sometimes they're definitely parasitic. Hauntings don't tend to be really, but poltergeist is, and that's why it's short-lived. It's like it utilizes and shorts and moves on. Sometimes it tracks individuals and more like haunted people as opposed to haunted homes.
You know what it's telling me? Again, we go back to this whole computer matrix, computer program thing. Is a poltergeist either a computer virus or a troll person being running the code?
It could be, if you were to think of it like that, it's designed to look through the code and utilize what it can obtain. Don't know why it needs to obtain it. It takes it and moves on, and relocates to maybe somewhere else where it can look at certain energy levels and utilize it, feed from it, move on. It's like its method is it's like an electric car. Now and again, you've got to charge it up, and then it
That's
moves.
why I say it's an online troll, because they are people that would, if they send out shit your way, excuse the French, and you react to it, that gives them power to come back and do it again. And if you give them no thought and you just ignore it, they move on to someone else. That's exactly what this poltergeist is.
Is that well? Yeah, I mean, it's all down to how you want to think this.
Mm.
No, we do know through parapsychological tests and experiments that we can alter. We can't break it, but we can bend it in our favor. The reality, if you're clever enough. There are people in experiments that have shown this, that certain things and random number generators can be influenced by people thinking,
Mm.
okay, look, yeah, absolutely. Can you make a change in it? And they do make a change in it. They're changing what's happening in their reality in that environment simply through the belief process. So, yes, we do have some play there. We can't break it, but we can manipulate it.
I know this whole observer effect thing is very fascinating, because it also seems to suggest, right, that the world you physically see through your eyes is I could be seeing something completely different.
Yeah, I mean, quantum, the quantum scientists now are saying basically, and how can I best put this? Okay, so we know our bathrooms, we know we got a bathroom, but what the quantum scientists are saying is that bathroom doesn't exist. Not until you go there and experience.
Into it, yeah, that's right.
Right? Now, if that's the case, then it's consistently altering and building and manipulating through our own reality. We're building our own reality. We live it every single day, until we know it comes into our existence when we experience it. Now, that's very similar to many other aspects, especially like, the Joule slit aspect, the waveform differentials and stuff. The quantum mechanics works in quantum mechanics. We might be looking at something which has been created for us to operate within. But
Yes.
there is the worker bees, and the worker bees are interested in the development of that program, altering the program, genetically altered in some cases, manipulating it, changing the aspects of things. And when they make big changes, and there's no way of us not unnoticing in it, it becomes profound coincidences. Those
Or the
profound
Mandela effect or something.
Mandela effect. It's like, well, you can't get away with that one because now
Yeah.
it's impossible to make all those changes without us realizing. And then we go, oh, ain't that really odd that? Or what's the chances of that happening? Well, I'll tell you now, zero probably most times. Some of them are billions to one. I know of incidents, which are billions to one. And it can't happen without intervention of some intelligent intervention. It has to be. So then we have to question the world, the reality around us, and the source, and it is a source that is interacting with us on multiple different levels in different ways and has changed its aspects. Behavior doesn't much, but it changes its aspects through time and
Mm.
manipulates, does things, changes us, it has agendas sometimes, but it seems like they're controlling not just our experiences, but sometimes the very reality around that experience.
Right, yeah. So what makes me think of this being computer games again is that's how the modern architecture of games work, in that they build the world you're going through at that time. So they don't build the whole thing because that would, use up a lot of resource. So it makes me wonder about this reality. Again, is it all alluding to
Sounds
the
like
computer
it, doesn't it?
matrix? Yeah.
Does, yeah, it's very interesting now that the concept of it, and it's very hard to digest because we're only realizing now that there's much more to reality than what our senses are aware of. However, there are, we have to even question that programmed event. I mean, if you want to look at reality, the evidence that we've got in regarding some of the parapsychological tests that are taking place in communications with non-human intelligences have given us information on 6 occasions which takes place in the future, and they've all happened. Now, how did he do that? Well, one of two things: either are aware of a set destinational information in the future, or they manipulate the reality by multiple serendipities and events to get there.
Yeah.
Either way is godly. Either way. So now, as many scientists have saying now, has God been hijacked? Is there a source? And this source is being utilized in various different ways to manipulate us and are aware. Now, how can we be told about future events which come true? Well, it's rather manipulation or knowledge. Only one of the two things, but either way, the questions about our reality, and free will. Do we even have free will? Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, isn't it? Is it all a big facade or a charade, should I say? We have minute choices in life, but ultimately we're ending up in the same
Yeah, but
place.
it's every minute choice. I mean, if you walk out your front garden, you say, "Do you know what? Today I'm going to take a left instead of a right." Well, there's a new predestination is created straight away.
Mm.
That computer program just works out. If you're going to, oh right, well, you're not going to go that way. Boom! I've just wrote out your whole path to going left. Are we in control by taking that left, or is there an option there for the computer, like a computer program, to say you can go right or left? Either way, I'll manage it.
Exactly. It's a sat nav reroute. We're going to get you to the
It's
end,
that reroute.
location. Yeah.
Exactly. Predestination's already in.
But what
So
you do have, you have the choice to go outside and then look at that tree or that tree. That's the choices you actually physically do have.
well, yes, we do have some seemingly some physical choice in this. Unless you're part of that predestination information prior to it to say you are going to go out there and you're going to pick left or you're going to pick right, or you'll go out there and you will look at both trees. Where does it begin? Where does it end? The cycle is hard to know.
Do you think we'll ever find out? Do you think when we die we find out?
We've got no chance. I don't think we'll ever know because there's a certain the information too close to the source we will never get. Even when it comes to communications with wherever these things are, these intelligences are, if we press them, they take a step back. They won't tell us. They won't give. We'll get little bits and bobs of information. They like to technologically advance us, absolutely, in many ways. But when we start pressing them, they take a step back. It's like you can't know. It's just like the biggest secret. Sometimes some of the communications that we have had have been interrupted by others. There's a hierarchy in the paranormal, seemingly, which brings all communications to an end when those guys are involved.
Here's a thought then. Do you think, right, the reason they won't give you the answers about reality is because if we are computer programs, right, let's just say we're sentient people on a holodeck.
Yeah,
Sorry, we're manifestations of the Star Trek holodeck, right? We're not the real people in it. So by them telling us, well, by the way, you're not real people,
yeah,
that would destroy you.
it would. I don't know. I mean, when we got to ask questions, there's 17 experiments are involved in parapsychological experiments, SCPs, the Scientific Establishment Parapsychologists. They're all confidential ones. 4 of them have been released. They're still not released the rest of them yet. That's because it has to be delivered in digestible chunks. And it's got to fit into the process of our understanding. So, but we are getting there. And some of those experiments were about obtaining knowledge, and we got opened up a conduit. The problem is, what you do is you take 4 or 5 months and you selective circle. Selective circle means that it's got to be fine tuned for contact. Your people, your sitters, or your experimenters around the table might, one of them, only it takes one of them to be, well, I don't know if I believe this or that and the other and da da da, and it won't work because the phenomena doesn't want that. It wants to be able to interact. That's why people tend skeptics around the table. They'll never get anything, you know, because it's a bit like faith. It's a bit like faith apparitions. If you don't believe in a religion, you're not going to have any faith apparition. It's the same thing. Acts like a religion in some cases. And we built up a situation where it was good, and we pushed through to NHI, non-human intelligences, communications, and that's built up as a conduit. It's interesting then because we've got to be careful. We wrote protocols in to say, okay, it's called a respite protocol because what happens is when it happens, it's exciting to experience the stuff, communications and manifestations and stuff. And you want to go back to it every day, every day. When you do that, it's going to track you back home. You don't want hitchhiking phenomena. So we had to purposely write in what is referred to is the respite protocol. That's two in 5 or 3 in 7. The 2 in 5 and 3 in 7 protocol means that 2 times a week if it's 5 days, or if it's 7 days a week, then you can do it 3. The reason being is to make sure that that it doesn't capture the eye so much, so that this phenomenon doesn't get under your skin too much and track back home. And we don't want that, so we do respite protocols. Once we do that, and that conduit's open, you can go away and you come back and the conduit's still open. It's like leaving the phone off the hook once you've established it, and you can communicate well. And we obtain information saying, look, okay, can we ask 10 questions? Eventually it got to the point where we can. So we went away, and for years I thought, well, isn't it really interesting? I've always, if I could ask questions, I'd just, I'd ask this. I said, well, the problem is when it got to that, it's like when we knew we were going to go back to the table 2 days away with these 10 questions, there was a good chance we might get the answers. Now, don't get me wrong, this phenomenon is deceptive in occasions, and sometimes it throws red herrings in, and it's not right. However, can we fully trust them? No, is the answer. Definitely undermarked a few times. But we did go back, and the realism is when we actually knew that we might get some answers, is the thought crosses your mind as, do you want the answer? How will you deal with the answer? What's the realism of dealing with that? That never occurred to me until that time, to be honest. But we had 10 questions down, and what was really interesting, and it was a great, great piece of information, this, because it changed the whole aspect of our understanding regarding the relationship between knowledge and how it gets to us from these third parties, the NHIs, whatever these things are, is we were about to ask the 10 questions when they delivered all 10 answers. before we gave the question. So they obtained it from the sitters. They obtained the information from us. So that's a big problem now, because if you go and see a psychic about your grandma passed away last year, and your psychic communicates with something and tells you something that only you would know, is it confirmation that the psychic is actually getting that from your grandmother? No, it's not.
Hmm. It could be
It's
you
because
sending it out.
the phenomena can obtain it from yourself and feed it back through somebody who's intuitive enough to have the information presented to, who will relay that to you. It could be a psychic, a medium. So the whole process kind of, now we've got a problem, because if there's deception involved, and we do know that, and they can obtain information from the individuals, we've got a real issue here, because the support for the theory of afterlife is built upon those principles, and those principles are just proven, have just been disintegrated by the results. So that's a real problem for us. But there were certain things that we asked, other dimensions around us, 11, they were told. Now, this is long before even scientists have confirmed 11 other dimensions around us.
Hmm.
Use 11, that's said a lot now, but this was 20 years ago, and long before any scientists were on the internet talking about dimensions and realities of another 11. Multiple reality scenarios. Are the other us? The answer was yes, there's multiples of us. Okay. Do you know what the problem is that they're very interesting, the responses to. But we do know, 4 out of 10 are going to be inaccuracies, but which four? That's the problem, and that's the problem with these things. And the problem with these NHI communications, they have worked to some degree, because Douglas and Bell and Boeing were sat around sales tables getting advanced information on technologies of aviation and utilized some of it. The Real Society did exactly the same thing, but not everything worked. The Germans did not, or were not super successful with the flying disc program. But if they had been, they would have governed the skies and won the war. It wouldn't have stopped
Comfortably, yeah.
them.
So you've given us two of those 10 questions. Do you remember what the other eight were?
Yeah, one was about God.
Oh, what was that? What, does he exist? That sort of thing.
Well, yeah, does God exist? Well,
And what was the answer?
well, it's like we are everything. Okay, that's the answer.
Okay.
Sometimes they're quite scripted, you know. Um, what do you look like? You know, um, basically, they said whatever what we choose to look like. So no real base plan here for UFOs. In 1977, even Hynek, who said, after doing all these Project Blue Book, said, "Do you know what, guys? Not only do I not think it's extraterrestrial in origin, but to date we have over 12 million variations of the UFO phenomena." Jacques Vallée said the phenomenon delivers absurdity on purpose, because there's no base model, and it can be anything and anything.
Mm.
And it's done a bit like a psychological warfare, so in a sense of speaking, a human psychological warfare. But and that's exactly where we are. It can be anything and everything. Sometimes it makes mistakes. There's a strange craft that come down and land, and it's got 1930s portholes and rivets, and you think, I didn't quite get that right, did they? Sometimes they do. It's just, and it's absurdity, and this is what this phenomena is. But when you feed all this into a program called the CRS system, which is one of the advanced artificial intelligence program, modern day, 3 years of inputs into everything you can possibly feasibly think about all these subjects and sub-subjects and sub-subjects, it delivered, when pressing the button, a conclusion as to what all this means. What is it all? What is the connectivity? Everything was in there. And it said, not expecting to get loads of reams out, you're not expecting to just get a couple of paragraphs, but the first one said everything. He showed much interconnectivity between all sources of phenomena. Like, he believed it was the source. There was one source capable of all this. What is that source? Is it God? What is it? Secondly, he said it has the capability of creating physiological constructs. That's you, me, tables, chairs, when they want to be. Which means when capable of means that, all right, well, sometimes they don't. So it's metaphysical phenomena. 1 minute they're real and physical, 1 minute they're not. Well, that's right across all the board on all phenomena. So what is the source? and as our referencing to it has been multiple things over the years: biblical, angels, cherubs, cupids, Our Lady Mary, strange creatures, cryptids, paranormal, goblins, fairies, wraiths, you name it, same phenomena, different mask, always present, always been here. And how to deliver that in a way, because we're trying to create structure to it when there's no structure, is to try and work out what's consist of. Well, I don't think it's going to consist of anything, which is going to be a deliverable disclosure. How do you disclose that this phenomenon is right under our noses, can interact with us any given time it wants, and we cannot control it? We are puppets on a string. They can't. It can't be done. And this is,
No.
and I still stick to that. Even now, I have to keep saying, no matter how many congressional hearings will be, you'll always get all you're going to get is some knowledge of, it's not the elephant in the room anymore, the conversation about UFOs. Now we said 8 years ago that the NHI, that's going to be coming forward. The ET and ETH will disappear and get replaced. Said this 8 years ago. We're now living in that moment. It's now being replaced by non-human intelligences, and the references are interdimensional or ultra terrestrial.
Ultra, yeah.
Another one. The principles of what the ruse was from years ago, that these things are traveling the vast distances of space to travel to Earth in exotic engines and crafts, is not right. The evidence doesn't support any of that. That's why, Jacques Vallée said in 1977, and so did Hynek, it's not extraterrestrial.
Thing is that I don't know if we'll ever prove them right, because how do we know that what we're given? You've said it yourself. They're tricksters. How do we know what we're given is real? We don't.
No, but what we can say is that with the science that we do understand, there's no superhighway traveling backwards and forwards to Earth. Statistics would show now on a planetary level over 24 hours that probably a UFO is seen every 10 to 20 seconds. Where are they all coming from?
Oh, you tell me.
Well, the manifestation. UFOs seem to be manifest into our environment, go about the business and demanifest. We also track them to locations where those manifestations take place. These would tend to be around positive magnetic regions. That's been known by the US military since at least 82, I know of. That they've been tracking UFO phenomena in connection to positive magnetic regions, and not just UFOs. Huge amounts of paranormal activity and cryptids and disappearances in those very locations. There's definitely these interesting areas. The NASA's got a nice little word for them when they're outside orbit now, and that's what do they call them now? Electron diffusion regions. But it's the same thing. Same thing. It's the manifestation point.
You know what we are? We are 100% living in an AI fractal that we can never resolve. That's what it seems like, and we're going to end.
Because we're trying to work out from the mechanism within of our knowledge. But the mechanism that we've got within is part of the problem. It's like I've said to people about the UFO phenomena. Don't consider UFOs as crafts to carry the phenomena. The UFO is the phenomena.
The phenomena, yeah. Right, before we enter the Koit zone, which will be the last section in this interview or stroke conversation, I do want to ask a sort of comedy question, really, which is, have your list of questions that you're giving into these NHIs, have you ever considered throwing a comedy question in there, like how long is a piece of string, to see how it reacts to a comedy?
Yeah, they don't bother. They don't understand that. In fact, one thing they also can't seemingly understand is reverse psychology. We practice that with them, and they don't seem to understand reverse psychology very well.
Yeah, please don't tell us everything about the universe.
They don't get it.
Sort of thing.
Yeah, they don't. They just don't get it. They don't realise that sometimes by their actions lead us to think that, okay, we're on the right path, fuel in the fire situation. They don't realise that.
All more evidence of AI or computer program again, I think.
It's like, well, when they do deliver punishment, when they don't want you to, they don't like what you're getting into. Sometimes you get a slap on the hand. Yeah. But they don't realise that by doing that, it indicates to us we're on the right path. They don't understand that. So it's quite unusual. A bit like what you say, it's a bit like a computer program. It's just, but it does evolve. It tries to learn as best it can. But yeah, we've tried to, but you just don't get it. You just, and sometimes they'll get to the point where, they'll get frustrated. They have impatience. They're understanding that. They do understand that. They understand frustration. They understand sarcasm, seemingly.
Oh.
They understand threat. They understand about how we are emotionally tied to responses. Um, but just little now and again, it's just sometimes they don't seem to understand certain little things. And sometimes, this conversation is over. If you press it, if you upset them, the conversation's over. Or if you ask a certain question and you say, we can't tell you that.
Do they ever
Or,
swear?
or they won't tell you that, or they won't ask you, they'll just won't answer it if they don't want to. There's definitely a limitation to the knowledge we have. Sometimes it sounds like and feels like during the experiments that we're communicating. We're thinking we're communicating with the big wigs. It might be just like a bunch of kids, and
Yeah.
teacher walks in, and all communications come to an end. These things that come in have been referred to as lightertons or beings of light. And when we ask the questions, who are these? It doesn't happen straight away because all communications come to an end. But when we open a conduit again, and if those things aren't there, we ask, what was that? These are beings that know all and see all. Those was the response. I don't know. It's like a hierarchy. It's definitely a hierarchy. We,
Mm.
you know, but sometimes it feels like we're dealing with communications with these intelligences which are adult, but it seems it's like sometimes these are the naughty kids that shouldn't be talking to us and they get caught out. And you shouldn't be doing that. Stop all communicating. You know what I mean? And it seems that's the case sometimes. So
Mm.
it's really weird.
This is a genuinely fascinating conversation, and I'm being honest here. I could speak to you for hours, and I know I don't want to monopolize your time, but because we have to quickly enter the Koit zone. Koit zone! Now, in the Koit zone, I'm going to ask you comedy or irreverent questions, mixed in with a couple of sensible ones as well, so please bear with. First one, have you ever had a recurring dream?
Yes, quite a
Can you
lot.
tell us what it was?
Yeah, usually from my experiences as a child.
Ah, and did you ever resolve what brought these recurring dreams to you to stop them happening,
Well,
or
do
are
you
they
know what?
still going on?
I live in the world of this subject. So 24/7, 7 days a week, 41 years. Um, it's part of my life. The phenomena recognizes my interest. So it never goes away.
And presents you that. Mm.
I think so, yeah. It's intertwined into me psychologically.
Cool. The next question, can you name a breed of chicken?
A breed of chicken?
Yeah.
No, no, I never actually saw a
Okay, let
breed.
me just put a big red cross in that one. Okay, if all the ocean's water was suddenly removed, what would we find besides dead sea life? What do you think's down there?
Oh God, yeah. There's lots of construction down there on the bottom of the sea. The oceans have moved, and the planetary tectonic plates have changed so much over the years that we've got, buried civilizations over buried civilizations.
It'd be fascinating to see that again, wouldn't it?
Oh,
I'd love to see that.
yeah. A long process.
But we need the water, so we won't do it. I had a next question written down, but we've already covered this. It was, are we living in a matrix? Now we've covered that, so I'm going to cross that one out. What is your favourite film?
Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
How very apt. I love it. It's a good film, to be fair. Eggs. How do you prefer them cooked?
Poached.
Lovely. With the runny egg or is it hard? Sorry, yeah, runny yolk or hard?
Yeah, a little mid.
Mid. Okay, cool. Name a sweets or chocolate item that you could eat an incredible amount of because they're so Moorish.
Hmm. Oh, that's a good question. Don't really have one.
Oh, how random, but I like it. Right, here's one. You invent a pill that once swallowed means that you either never have to eat or drink again or never sleep again. A, why did you invent that pill? And B, which option are you choosing?
No, I'll probably never eat again. That would be great for space travel. because if
Yeah,
you're
that's
not
true.
eating, you not have to endure digestion, and that's a massive problem when you're in space.
That's true. And
But
it
sleep is
also it also leaves more time for you to do investigations, which is,
oh
sort
yes,
of
it does.
I was going to say pick an item from your background and tell us a story of it. Now, the only thing I can see really is that
Light
quality background you do have, which is the hexagons. I think that's amazing.
Yeah, it's a soundboard. So it's actually part of the wall. It's when I'm doing podcast stuff and things. So.
Yeah, it's great. I got some sound reflection stuff over that shoulder there. It's brilliant stuff. What's the best thing you've ever found?
Love.
Oh, nice answer there. Of all the superpowers seen in the superhero comics and shows and movies and stuff, which would you rather have?
Flight.
I'm with you on that one.
Gotta be, hasn't it? Gotta be.
It really has.
Yeah, not long.
Yeah, perfect. And that brings the end of the Koit Zone. So thank you ever so much for answering those. As always, we have two final questions. The first being, what else do you like to do in your downtime? Any activities or guilty pleasures?
Oh yeah. Um, I don't get much time to, but many years ago, when I left school, I used to work for Games Workshop.
Oh, lovely.
I used to professionally paint, because occasionally, if I need to take myself away from the world of strange and the profound, I'll go and sit and do some painting.
Oh, amazing. Yeah, it's a nice creativity is a great outlet, I think, for the logical mind. And the final thing, what are you currently working on?
Oh my God, Project Doorway. It's we're in 10 years in now. Project Doorway is advanced study of UAP or UFO phenomena in connection to the paranormal aspects. I work with a colleague, Barry Fitzgerald. Most people probably know Barry from Ghost Hunters International. I think he's one of the lead investigators there. Myself, we've both been together for quite a number of years now, working alongside each other on this subject. It is in the public domain. It's one of the leading ones in regarding the paranormal aspects and the studies, advanced studies of the UFO phenomenon. We've got more tests, more experiments. We've got a number of TV shows to do. We're writing a book together at the moment. We've got another book to come. So there's lots of things to do. I mean, I do a lot of different things. TV, do a lot of TV, I do a lot of radio, podcasts, author. I'm an investigative researcher, an international lecturer, so I travel around doing a lot. Educational courses on the subject. It's 360, to be honest with you, 360 degree. So there's always something. So it's going to be something involved in this subject. But Project Doorway is the leading one at the moment. And people can find stuff out there if you type in Project Doorway, about some of our work. But the good thing is that we're living at a time when the narratives are changing. And the good thing is that people are realizing that space is already occupied by our work over the last 10 years. That's why it's getting a lot of interest at the moment. But we're also on think tanks as well around the world. And we're just trying to figure out what's it all mean. And do you know what? I don't think we'll get to know.
I
But
agree with you. I don't think we will.
I don't think there's anything more important than trying to understand the world we live in. And if we even could just chip away at it a little bit, then it's worthwhile.
100%. Everything is a stepping stone towards that epiphany that we want. I would say I had loads of extra sections that I've not crossed out, but glossed over today because we had such fascinating conversation in all the other arenas. So hopefully I'll get to speak to you at some stage in the future and we can cover that. But for now, thank you. I want to say, for everyone who's interested in this and Steve's work, check out all the links in the description. They're all there. Fascinating fella, fascinating topic of investigation. So go and check it out. So thank you ever so much for coming, Steve, and thank you everyone for watching.
Yeah, thank you very much, Paul. I enjoyed it.
Thank you. Keep well. Bye-bye.
Well, bye-bye.
To watch other KoitCast episodes, please click the image top left. To subscribe to my channel, please click the image top right. Please like and share to help KoitCast grow, and most importantly of all, please click the notification bell so you never miss an upload.